Welcome back to African Folktales by Nietzsche. If you're ready to see how Mmeso's plan unfolds, then you're in the right place. But if you haven't watched part 1 yet, don't worry. It's already on the channel. Make sure to watch it first to catch up on all the exciting twists and turns. Then come back to join us here for part 2. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. And of course, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment with your thoughts. What do you think will happen next? Back to the story. The next day, Mmeso called her friend Nkem for help. She wanted to pose as Nkem and approach Machi as a potential client who wanted to boost the popularity of her boutique. Nkem agreed to the plan. Mmeso dressed up as Nkem and dialed Machi's number, arranging a meeting at Nkem's boutique. When Machi arrived at the boutique, she was enthusiastic and friendly. "Hello, I'm so excited to meet you," she said, shaking Mmeso's hand warmly. "Thank you for coming, Machi," Mmeso replied, maintaining her composure. "I've heard great things about your work, and I believe you can help take my boutique, Nkemzi's Glamour, to the next level." Machi's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I'd love to be a part of that. What do you have in mind?" Mmeso explained the details of the job, emphasizing the importance of Machi's role as the face of the boutique. Machi was thrilled and eagerly accepted the offer. As they discussed the collaboration, Machi's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and a broad smile spread across her face. "Excuse me for a moment," she said, stepping aside to answer the call. "Hey babe, you'll never guess what just happened," she said excitedly into the phone. Mmeso's heart raced as she listened in. She knew it was Emeka on the other end of the line. Machi gushed about the opportunity she'd just been offered, clearly overjoyed. After the call, she returned to Mmeso, her face still glowing with happiness. "That was my man," Machi said, unable to contain her excitement. "He's been so supportive of my career. We've been together for a while now, and he's just the best." Mmeso forced a smile, her mind reeling. "He sounds wonderful. How did you two meet?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Machi's eyes lit up as she recounted their story. "We met at a business conference. He was so charming and intelligent. He told me he was single, and we just hit it off immediately. He's been there for me through everything, always encouraging me to follow my dreams." As Machi spoke, it became painfully clear to Mmeso that she had no idea Emeka was married. The innocence and sincerity in her voice were unmistakable. Machi genuinely believed she was in a committed relationship with a single man. Mmeso's heart ached with a mix of anger and sorrow. She realized that Emeka had not only betrayed her, but had also deceived this young woman. Determined to gather more evidence, Mmeso decided to continue with the charade. "That's such a lovely story," Mmeso said, forcing a smile. "I'm glad you have someone so supportive in your life." "Thank you," Machi replied, beaming. "I'm really excited about this opportunity. I can't wait to get started." As they wrapped up their meeting, Mmeso felt a pang of sadness in her heart. She envied the beautiful young lady for having a seemingly sweet relationship with her husband. Out of genuine curiosity, she asked, "Machi, what does your man love about you? What do you do to keep him so interested and hung up on you?" Machi smiled brightly and replied, "Well, Emeka always says he loves how vibrant and youthful I am. He loves my energy and how I always keep things exciting and fresh. I think he enjoys the fact that I take care of my appearance and always try to look my best for him. He also appreciates when I surprise him with little things, like a special dinner or a spontaneous outing. It keeps the romance alive." Mmeso nodded, taking mental notes. As she listened, a mix of sadness and determination welled up inside her. She decided to try these things out, hoping to rekindle the spark in her own marriage and see if that was the reason for Emeka's infidelity. The next day, Mmeso went shopping for a new wardrobe, choosing outfits that were vibrant and youthful, just like Machi had described. She made an appointment at the salon and got a fresh, stylish haircut. She spent the afternoon preparing a beautiful candlelit dinner, complete with Emeka's favorite dishes. She wanted everything to be perfect. That evening, when Emeka returned home, he barely glanced at Mmeso as he walked through the door. Determined to make an impression, she greeted him with a warm smile and a kiss on the cheek. "What's all this?" Emeka asked, looking around at the elegant table setting and the flickering candles. "I wanted to do something special for us," Mmesa replied, her voice filled with hope. "I thought we could have a nice dinner together, just the two of us." Emeka sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "I'm really tired, Mmeso. I've had a long day." "Please, Emeka," she pleaded. "I put a lot of effort into this. Can we at least sit down and enjoy the meal together?" Reluctantly, Emeka agreed and sat down at the table. Mmeso served the food, trying to keep the conversation light and engaging. But Emeka's responses were curt and uninterested. He ate quickly, barely tasting the food, and kept checking his phone. After finishing his meal, Emeka pushed his chair back and stood up. "Thanks for dinner, but I'm really exhausted. I'm going to bed." Mmeso felt her heart sink. "Emeka, I was hoping we could spend some time together. Maybe talk or watch a movie?" Emeka shook his head, looking annoyed. "Mmeso, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a teenager. I'm too tired for all this. Good night." With that, he left the dining room and headed to the bedroom, leaving Mmeso devastated. She sat at the table, staring at the remains of the dinner she had so carefully prepared. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she forced herself to stay composed. The next morning, as Emeka went about his routine, Mmeso's anger and determination solidified. She knew now that it wasn't about how she looked or what she did. It was about Emeka's own choices and deceit. She couldn't change who she was for him, and she wouldn't let him continue to disrespect and betray her. That evening, when Emeka returned home, looking worn from yet another long day at work, Mmeso greeted him with a soft smile. The dining table was already set, the scent of freshly made food filling the room, but her eyes gave nothing away. "Emeka, we need to talk," she said, her voice calm, though the air between them buzzed with tension. He paused mid-step, his eyes narrowing slightly. "About what?" There was a hint of wariness in his tone, as though he already sensed what was coming. "About Mr. Amadu," Mmeso replied, her gaze never leaving his face, watching intently for any sign of discomfort. At the mention of the name, Emeka's hand faltered as he reached for his drink. His smile wavered, and though he tried to maintain his composure, the subtle tightening of his jaw didn't escape her notice. The flicker of panic in his eyes confirmed everything she needed to know. But instead of pressing further, Mmeso leaned back, her expression softening into something almost casual. "I actually spoke to him earlier today." Emeka's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You spoke to him?" "Yes," she said, her smile steady, masking the storm brewing beneath. "He mentioned a contract he's eager for you to handle. Sounds like quite a deal. Lucrative, even." Mmeso let the words hang in the air for a moment, observing as his confusion turned to cautious curiosity. "Oh?" he asked, his tone betraying a touch of relief. "I'll send you the details by email," she continued, her voice smooth and unhurried. "And I'll make sure the documents are delivered to your office tomorrow for you to sign." Mr. Amadu seemed quite eager to move things forward. Emeka leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxing as the tension drained from his shoulders. "Good, thanks for taking care of that." Mmeso flashed him a small, knowing smile. "Of course, darling. Anything for the company." Over the following days, Mmeso played her role to perfection. She sent the email as promised, her tone in each correspondence professional, calm, and composed. Emeka, trusting her without question, barely glanced at the contents before passing them on to his legal team. The papers arrived at his office promptly, and with barely a second thought, he signed them. To Emeka, it was just another routine day, another deal handled by his capable wife. He had no reason to suspect the undercurrents that were now swirling beneath the surface. No reason to doubt that the woman sitting across from him at dinner each night was quietly orchestrating something far beyond his comprehension. Some days later, Mmeso's usual facade of strength began to crumble as an overwhelming darkness settled over her once again. The familiar weight of exhaustion and despair pressed heavily on her chest. She felt it creeping back, the relentless gloom that had plagued her for years. Her head pounded, and her limbs felt like lead. This time, it was worse than ever. The maid found her slumped over the dining table, too weak to respond, her body trembling. Panicked and unsure of what to do, the maid snatched Mmeso's phone from the counter and scrolled through her recent calls. The last number was from Nkem, a close friend. With trembling fingers, she dialed the number. Nkem arrived within minutes, her face drawn with concern. Without wasting any time, she helped Mmeso into the car and drove straight to Nkem's family doctor. The journey was a blur for Mmeso, her body too frail to protest, her mind clouded by an unfamiliar haze of confusion. At the clinic, the doctor wore an expression of worry as he examined her. His face grew darker with each passing moment, his brows furrowed in disbelief. "Mmeso, why are you taking this medication?" the doctor asked, his tone urgent, almost accusatory. Mmeso, her voice barely above a whisper, responded, "What medication? I've only ever taken antidepressants, doctor. After the baby. It's for my postpartum depression." The doctor's gaze hardened and he pulled out a file from his desk. "No, you don't understand. What I found in your system, it's not an antidepressant, it's something else. Something far worse." Mmeso's eyes widened, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you mean? That's impossible! I've been taking the same medication for years. My husband gives it to me. He knows about this." The doctor shook his head slowly, his voice grave. "Mmeso, the medication in your bloodstream isn't treating your depression. It's inducing it. These drugs, they're designed to suppress your energy, your clarity, to weaken you. You've been systematically poisoned." For a moment, the room seemed to tilt, and Mmeso felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She stared at the doctor in disbelief, her mind racing. "No, that can't be right. You must be mistaken." Her voice cracked, frantic now. "There's no way my husband would—" The doctor interrupted her, his voice firm. "If you don't believe me, go to another hospital. Get a second opinion. But I'm telling you, Mmeso, what I found in your system was no accident." Shaking, Mmeso left the clinic with Nkem by her side. Her thoughts were in chaos, disbelief gripping her heart. Could Emeka really have done this? Could he have been feeding her the very drugs that were destroying her? Determined to know the truth, she rushed to another hospital that very afternoon. The tests were swift, and the results left no room for doubt. The same drugs were found in her system. Drugs that slowly, over time, had been sapping her strength, clouding her mind, and making her dependent. The realization hit her like a blow to the chest, knocking the breath from her lungs. The truth she had tried so desperately to avoid was now staring her in the face. Emeka had been doing this to her, orchestrating her slow downfall from the very beginning, weakening her, keeping her subdued so she wouldn't stand in the way of his plans. The betrayal was unbearable. Every moment they had shared, every smile, every word of comfort, it had all been a lie. Her husband, the man she had trusted, had been slowly destroying her, turning her into a shell of her former self. And now, as the truth settled in, Mmeso realized just how deep the storm went. This was the final straw. Mmeso was done playing the obedient wife, done suffering in silence. She had devised a plan that would end everything, on her terms. With cold determination, she returned to Nkem's family doctor and requested the antidote to the drugs she had been unknowingly taking. The poison that Emeka had been slipping into her system would no longer hold her captive. Emeka, in his typical nonchalance, never remembered even the simplest things, like her birthday, and that would be his downfall. Mmeso decided to turn her 31st birthday into a spectacle, a moment he would never forget. She made all the arrangements, calling Nkem's family doctor and inviting her father, friends, and crucially, Machi. Unbeknownst to Emeka, she had also planted discreet CCTV cameras all around the house, ready to capture the truth. The day of the party arrived, and the house buzzed with excitement. Friends and family mingled, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Emeka, ever the charming host, played his role perfectly, smiling and greeting the guests with no inkling of the trap that had been set for him. As the festivities unfolded, Mmeso received a call from Machi. "Madam Nkem, I'm at the gate," Machi chirped excitedly. "Come let me in." Mmeso's lips curled into a subtle smile. "Of course," she replied, slipping out to greet her. They exchanged pleasantries, and Mmeso led Machi inside, her heart thudding with anticipation. As they stepped into the party, Machi's eyes lit up as she spotted Emeka in the crowd. Their eyes met, and with the excitement of someone seeing a familiar face, she dashed towards him, her voice loud and cheerful. "Wow, Emeka! So you know Madame Nkem too? Small world!" she laughed. But as she turned to point out Meso to Emeka, Meso had vanished into the sea of guests, like a shadow slipping into the dark. Confused, Machi looked around, but Meso was nowhere to be found. Emeka, suddenly panicked, grabbed Machi's wrist, pulling her aside. "We need to talk," he muttered urgently, dragging her toward the nearest restroom. What Emeka didn't know was that Meso, watching from the hidden surveillance, had already seen enough. Her lips twitched into a cold, calculating smile as she watched the live footage from the restroom. Inside, Emeka whispered frantically to Machi, oblivious to the fact that every word was being captured on camera. "Emeka, my love, why are you pulling me like this? What's wrong?" Machi's voice was a mix of confusion and concern. Emeka's response was clipped and tense. "Listen, you need to leave right after we come out of here. Don't ask questions, just go." Meso, seated behind the control panel, decided it was time. She picked up the microphone and addressed the entire room, her voice echoing through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have something to share with you all." The room fell silent, eyes shifting to Meso as she gestured towards the large screen mounted on the wall. And then, with a single click, the live feed from the restroom appeared on the TV for everyone to see. Gasps rippled through the crowd as they watched the exchange between Emeka and Machi unfold. "Emeka, my love, what's wrong?" Machi's voice played out loud for everyone to hear. The guests were frozen in place, their eyes glued to the screen. Emeka's face twisted with panic as he realized what was happening. But Meso wasn't finished. The footage switched, this time showing clips from the CCTV cameras at Emeka's office. There, he was seen walking Machi out of the building, holding her close, whispering in her ear. The final blow came with the images of Emeka's text messages to Machi, his love notes saved under the contact name Mr. Amadu. The room erupted in shock. The air was thick with tension, disbelief etched on every face. Emeka and Machi stepped out to meet the gaze of all the guests. Machi, utterly confused, turned to Emeka, her voice shaking. "What's going on? Who are all these people?" Emeka's face was drained of color, his shame now on full display. Before he could respond, a voice from the crowd cut through the silence. "Didn't you know he's married?" The color drained from Machi's face as the reality set in. Her gaze darted between Emeka and the crowd, her mind reeling. "Married?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Emeka, is this true?" No one offered her any comfort, no explanation. Overcome with shock and humiliation, Machi turned and fled from the room, her sobs echoing down the hallway as she pushed through the gathering and disappeared into the night. But Meso wasn't done yet. With the crowd still in stunned silence, Meso handed the microphone to Nkem's family doctor. "There's one more thing I'd like everyone to know," she said, her voice steady. The doctor cleared his throat and began speaking. For years, Meso believed she was taking antidepressants prescribed to her for postpartum depression, but what she didn't know was that the medication she was being given was not treating her, it was making her condition worse. He glanced at Emeka, his expression darkening. Her husband, Emeka, was secretly administering drugs designed to induce depression, making her weaker by the day. A collective gasp swept through the room, eyes darted between Emeka and Meso, disbelief and horror etched into every face. The doctor continued, "Meso's health deteriorated because of these drugs, and all this time she trusted her husband. She had no idea the very man she loved was responsible for her suffering." Her father, standing in the corner of the room, could take no more. His face pale with embarrassment, he stepped forward and took the microphone. "This matter is now a family issue," he announced, his voice firm. "The party is over." The guests began to disperse, murmurs of shock and confusion filling the air as they left the house one by one. But for Meso, it was far from over. The truth was out. Emeka's carefully crafted world had come crashing down, and he had no one to blame but himself. As the last of the guests trickled out, the room became eerily quiet. Only the immediate family and the doctor remained. Eyes turned toward Emeka, the tension thick in the air. Chief Okeke's face darkened as he stepped forward, his voice seething with controlled rage. "Is it true?" he demanded, his eyes burning into Emeka's. "Did you do that to my daughter?" Emeka, sweating under the weight of the accusation, forced a weak smile. No, it's not what it seems. This is all a misunderstanding," he stammered, desperately trying to hold on to his crumbling facade. Before he could utter another word, Mmeso stepped forward, her expression calm, but her eyes gleaming with triumph. From her bag, she pulled out a set of papers, test results from the hospital. She handed them to her father, who scanned the documents with shaking hands, his face turning white with disbelief. The room fell into stunned silence as the truth settled in. "You poisoned my daughter," Chief Okeke growled, his voice trembling with fury. Without hesitation, he turned to the guards by the door. "Take him away." But before the guards could move, Emeka, still clinging to his last shred of arrogance, laughed. It was a wild, maniacal sound echoing through the room like a madman. "Take me away? Do you not understand? The company is mine now." His voice was sharp, mocking. "Everything worked perfectly. Everything is in my name. You've all been playing my game." For a brief moment, he looked victorious, his chest swelling with pride. But then Mmeso laughed, a soft, knowing chuckle that sent chills down his spine. "You think you're clever, Emeka?" she asked, her voice icy yet calm. "You really believe you won?" Emeka's smirk faltered. Mmeso stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "Let me tell you what really happened." Her words were deliberate, each one landing like a blow. "The day I sent those files you so eagerly signed, they weren't business contracts. They were legal documents, meticulously crafted to transfer control of the company to me. And that email?" She smiled, savoring the moment. "It contained more than just a file. It gave me access to everything. Your phone, your secrets, your entire life." Emeka's face twisted with fury, his arrogance shattered. Realizing he had been outplayed, he lunged at Mmeso in a fit of rage, but the guards were quicker, pinning him down before he could reach her. Mmeso didn't flinch. She simply watched as they dragged him away, his curses and protests echoing down the hallway. Chief Eze, Emeka's father, stood frozen in shock. His face flushed with shame, he approached Mmeso's father. "Chief Okeke," he began, his voice filled with regret. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry for what my son has done." Chief Okeke nodded solemnly, his own heart heavy with regret. He turned to Mmeso, his eyes softening with a mix of pride and sorrow. "My daughter," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I forced you into this marriage, and I was wrong. You've proven yourself stronger than I ever imagined." Tears welled in his eyes as he reached for her hand. "Can you forgive me?" Mmeso looked at her father, her heart aching for the years she had spent fighting for his approval. "Papa," she said softly, "I forgive you." With Emeka out of the picture and his fraudulent actions exposed, Mmeso officially became the CEO of Okeke Enterprises. The company was hers now, and Emeka, stripped of everything he had tried to steal, was sentenced to jail for his crimes: fraud, forgery, and drugging his own wife. But even in victory, Mmeso hadn't forgotten about Machi, the woman caught in the crossfire. Days after the party, Mmeso visited her. Machi's face was a mask of bitterness when she saw Mmeso enter. "So you lied to me," Machi spat, her voice dripping with hurt. "You pretended to be my friend, only to humiliate me in front of all those people." Mmeso stood silently, letting Machi's words wash over her. "You know," Machi continued, her voice breaking, "I never even knew he was married. I was just a pawn in your game." For a moment, Mmeso felt the weight of guilt settle on her shoulders. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "but I didn't do it to hurt you. Emeka used you just like he used me. You were innocent in all of this." Machi's anger wavered, the pain in her eyes softening. Silence hung between them, heavy but healing. Over time, the two women began to rebuild their relationship. Mmeso, recognizing Machi's resilience and strength, saw potential in her. With the company now under her control, Mmeso offered Machi an unexpected opportunity. She made her the face of Okiki Enterprises' new brand. What began as a tentative bond slowly grew into a powerful friendship. Mmeso and Machi became inseparable, their connection forged from shared pain and triumph. When Machi later discovered she was pregnant, Mmeso stood by her side, offering unwavering support. Their children grew up together, not as rivals, but as siblings, surrounded by love from not one, but two mothers who had overcome betrayal and heartbreak to find strength in each other. And as the years passed, Mmeso looked back on the storm that had once threatened to destroy her, knowing that she had weathered it and come out stronger, with a life she could finally call her own. And so the storm finally settles. Through betrayal, deceit, and resilience, Mmeso emerged stronger, taking back control of her life and her destiny. From a marriage built on lies, she uncovered the truth and used her wisdom to outsmart those who tried to bring her down. But in the end, she didn't seek revenge. She sought redemption and healing, forging new bonds that would last a lifetime. The moral of the story? Trust your instincts and never underestimate the power of patience and careful planning. No matter how dark the storm, with determination and courage, you can reclaim your strength and find light on the other side. If you've enjoyed this journey, don't forget to subscribe to African Folktales by Nietzsche and hit that notification bell so you're first to know when a new story drops. Like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Mmeso's shoes? We'd love to hear from you.